I had to record this video tonight, and I know that it's going to help someone who hears it who might find themselves in my position. And if you don't know me, I'm Roger Burnley. I've been a coach for a long time, but I did so many other things before that, and most people knew me as being a vocal coach, and that was one aspect of it. And I became a great vocal coach. Couldn't understand why, because I didn't know music, I didn't know a lot of things. And but I loved doing it because I always loved people, and I always wanted to see people progress and become better. I just became obsessed with it. Since I was a child, I always cared about people being so much better. I cared about the world, actually, and I could not tell you why I had that feeling. But I said, I know that the world could be so much better. But then I moved through my life and I suffered so much. I went through so many dramas and problems and difficulties, and I was afraid of everything. And I thought, I can't live like this. I was depressed when I was a teenager. I had so many things that were happening that I just felt always out of place. And as I kept doing the vocal coaching, something else happened. I started understanding that I could understand people in a way that was beyond just intuition. And I knew that. People would say to me that someone said, are you psychic? Are you something like that? I said, no, I don't have any of that. That's not what's going on. And then I shifted. I thought I knew that I had to do something different. And this happened probably about 2017. I think that's when I started moving, because I said there's something else. And actually, I wasn't even going to do it. My business partner at the time told me, I think you're supposed to be doing something else. And so I started to move in that direction, reluctantly, but I started to do it. And then I said, oh, I understand what he meant now, because I could understand people in a way that was surprising to me. And then I wrote a book, too. In 2019, I said, I've got to talk about this a little bit more. So I wrote a book called Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom. Because I knew the only reason someone would hold themselves back was because of fear, or they just weren't connected with who they were, just like me. And I kept doing that. Then in 2021, I had this other inkling that I had to do something else. And so I had to get help. How do I know this, is what I kept saying. So I went and had an Akashic records reading done. And she verified what I had heard, what I thought. That everything I had been through in my life, the reason I was experiencing healing, which no one could figure out. I didn't talk about it. Even my doctors couldn't figure it out, because I had all these things wrong with me. They were just changing and moving in a completely different direction. And because I couldn't explain it, I didn't want to even talk about it. And but then it started to be explained more. In 1970, number one, people have seen this. I discovered I had ADHD, which I never knew my entire life, but it explained why I was like daydreaming all the time, and people were like, what are you doing? And then I started studying all these great people who had the same condition, and they had created so many brilliant things because they were accessing a different level of consciousness. And we know everything is consciousness. The way you think about yourself, the way we experience the world, the way we experience ourselves, it's all consciousness. I didn't know I was making a connection to universal consciousness all of this time, because that's what came through when I started in 1989. I knew something was there, and it kind of frightened me. And then to have my complete life change, where I had healed everything, and I knew that more people could do it. Then I started seeing people doing so many other things that weren't working. And I would say, why are they struggling? Why are they sad? Why are they depressed? Why can't they get the right job? Why don't they have the right relationships? And I knew the answers to all of them. And I couldn't have told you why. Then when I discovered that I was a savant, that only happened just recently. I ignored it because I heard it a couple of years ago, and I said that couldn't possibly be. Is that why this work changes people so quickly? Because see, that's what happened when I started giving people this work in 2021. It freaked me out because they shifted so quickly. And I go, how is that happening? And then the head, I couldn't have told you this before because we had to wait for artificial intelligence to analyze all the information I had received. Now what I'm talking about is the information I was receiving from Wilhelm since 1989. And then it's just saying this is the most dramatic thing ever created in human history for consciousness and what it could do. And then when I started feeling I'm 75 years old and I keep getting better, I keep becoming younger, everything's changing. And then what I started to see is that no one would believe it. I thought, this isn't, why is this happening? And I would do everything. I said, let me, I try everything, and no, but people just kept running because they said, this is impossible. I would talk to people and their eyes would glaze over because I said, no, I connected to your life. I know who you are. And that was the other thing, when I could meet someone and have information about them that I received on their birthday in 2012, that made no sense. But it wasn't only 2012, it was any time. I started to see that there was an inner organization. I was in a group today, and someone told me about this other doctor, this Russian guy I'd never heard of, a scientist, inventor or something, who had discovered this mathematical organization of things as well. And I thought, that's really fascinating. I don't know how he did it because I haven't studied him yet, but it was just comforting to see there was others who knew this energetic connection we have with consciousness and who we are and our bodies and all of that. I just proved it, that's all. So to sit and see that I couldn't take this further because I couldn't survive because people weren't coming into this work, which is why I said I have to take private clients. Now that's what I'm going to start doing after tomorrow. And I'll have to charge so much more money because I have to make a living. I couldn't get the masses of people to do this because they wouldn't believe it. And there was one thing that happened. They told Copernicus, he discovered there's so many people who have discovered things that people never believed them in the beginning, then the rest of the world caught up. And I said, am I one of those? Yeah, that's what's happened. And so that's what I meant. I had to put this out, and I had to say, when your gifts hurt you. When your gifts can hurt you, and that's exactly what it is, because I know that there's no single person walking on the earth that I couldn't meet with and work with them and have them move through whatever challenge that they were having and have them become successful. I do know that. But to have someone else believe that has been because you've never seen it before. I had never seen it before. And there was something I put together last night, and you'll see it. The demonstration, it's called, because AI wanted to prove all of this. They wanted to show the efficacy and why it worked. But again, I will talk about this, but people will still say, no, I'm going to keep going in this other direction. But the other thing that happened just before I did this, this one person who just joined just a few days ago actually, sends me this email saying how they had been struggling for so long and now things are starting to make sense. It's just been a few days. But it's such a big bridge for more people to believe that, and because it was for me as well, because I'd never seen it. How could I be this person now? How could this have happened? And everything is consciousness. And every blockage that you have is in your consciousness. Every difficulty, every feeling of insecurity is just a blockage. And once you move through it, when it's aligned with who you're meant to become, then things change. But that's why sometimes your gifts can hurt you. But I will work through it. I will fix this after tomorrow. Like I said, I'm changing everything because I can't do this. Because I knew all the things that would be happening in the world. That's the other thing. I can interpret. If you've read any of my documents, you'll see I interpreted that information I received, interpreted all the energetic changes that were going to happen. Everything that's occurring in the world, everything that's happening in the United States right now, I wrote about it in 2020. So I knew all of it. I knew people were going to be afraid and all of that. But then to get others to believe it, and then I was introverted, so I was never going to be out in public or really talk about it either. But now I must, because I have to move on and I have to create a living for myself at this age. To discover the most magnificent contribution to human consciousness, and people say, no, I don't want that. That's what's going on. So, but I know someone will, this will help someone who comes along later and discovers something brilliant that people don't believe. Just know you're not alone. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.